Welcome to No Hope, where I believe what separates the hopeless from the hopeful is all in what we know. I am celebrating today because it has officially been 1,010 days that I have been alive, like really thankfully alive, and I feel like I belong. And it came with a lot of healing that I feel I am so grateful for. But if I can stop somebody else from having to suffer as much, well, that's my goal. So I'm glad you joined us today. And because I obviously said 1,010 days and I'm clearly way older than that, that tells you that I spent a long time being pretty miserable. And if I could change that for anybody, I would love to. So instead of starting at the beginning of my happiness, we're going to start at the beginning of our lives as humans and fears. So humans are born with only 3 natural fears. Anybody guess what those fears are? Well, we're coming out of a stomach, so it's probably pretty quiet and muffled in there. Maybe some water sloshing, maybe our mom's voice, but for the most part it's pretty quiet. So we have a natural fear of loud noises. When we come out into a lot of chaos and a lot of noise going on, we tell, and that scares us, it startles us. We have a fear of abandonment. We've grown literally in somebody's stomach. We've never been alone. And we need our mother for a while, actually, in the beginning of life. And then we have a fear of falling. We are clearly going to be dropping out of where we're coming from, and getting caught, hopefully. But so the fear of falling is natural. Every other fear that we end up with in our life is from something called conditioning. What is conditioning? Well, every human is kind of born a blank slate minus genetics and the soul that inherits the body, but they are, Play-Doh, able to be molded, and the problem is, or the blessing is, the parents. The parents are what mold you. So, if you have parents who are securely attached with themselves and with the world, communicate well, have their 7 areas of life fulfilled, and their 6 basic needs constantly taken care of, they're what we would be considered a secure person. Or if they are not, the way they parent and act to the world would be in an insecure manner. Insecurity shows up in a variety of ways and forms depending on the person and the situation. But primarily, the mother has the most contact with the child. When we first come out, we end up feeding them and we're holding them. We call it nurturing because it's not just feeding, it is nurturing, it's comfort, it's more than that. So when we are attuned with our mother, the attunement is the process of feeling one another out intrinsically and vibrationally, and like through our bodies, physically feeling one another and the needs for one another, and providing the needs through feeling. Obviously children can't talk. We talk to you, but can't talk. So it's all about being attuned. So when it comes to like sleep separation and stuff, really for the first year, I mean, you should stay relatively close. I know this is debatable and we're not going to get into the rights and wrongs, but the fact of the matter is the feeding schedule is inconsistent, and it's also nurturing. Sometimes they just need to be held or suckled, because Oftentimes we try to separate because that's what we were taught to do. Let them crib train, put them in a different room. Sometimes they can develop attachment wounds early on with us. On top of that, if we were raised or have become insecure or insecure ourselves, we don't have the correct nourishments we've needed in our lives, we haven't healed some of our wounds, If we are more anxiously attached to ourselves, we're probably going to use that baby to fulfill our needs of admiration or comfort, which isn't what the baby needs. So the condition of the baby would probably end up really craving that attachment and become very clingy with us and maybe with others. It'd be difficult for them to want to leave us. If our rotation between us and our partner, our husband, our wife, whatever family we have, I support them all, whatever you choose, but if it's inconsistent or if their way of connecting with you is more of a detached way, then you yourself will probably end up becoming a little bit detached yourself, or because it's alternating between them and so inconsistent, you might become a little bit disorganized and become more of a push-pull. You don't really trust yourself alone, but you don't really trust other people because they've let you down too. It all plays out, and over the first 18 months, this attachment bond really forms and secures. The attachment is our bond that we have with ourselves, but not only ourselves, with the world. Children end up anxiously attached, dismissively avoidant, or disorganizedly as adults, we call it fearful avoidant. Excuse me, sorry. Through the contact that we have with other people and how that conditions us to respond to the world. So, if you are unaware of any of this before adulthood, if you're unaware about any of the technical terms or what I just said, how would you know if you were secure or not? I can't answer that for a secure person because I was not. I can only answer that for an insecure person, and even then I can only answer that for me. But intrinsically, I could feel it. I could feel it in my bones every second of every minute of every day growing up that something just wasn't right. You don't have to be beaten to be insecurely attached. You don't have to be abandoned or have anything big or traumatizing. Your parents could have been the most amazing people. Worked full job, provided food for you and nourishment for you. You could have been in all the sports and done well, but if you didn't have the emotional nourishment that you needed, if you didn't have the connection and the bond that you needed, if you were supposed to be seen and not heard, if you weren't able to be your authentic self, then you show up in the world in a way that was wounded of those parts, which makes you see the world a certain way and also act a certain way within it. And if you're making choices that are life-altering choices, things can get pretty chaotic pretty quickly, as I'm sure you guys saw. I sure did. If you had so much consistency growing up and you never had any spontaneity, you never had any uncertainty, you never had any variety, when you hit 18, you probably out of your parents' house, were gone, and did not want anything permanent for a long time. You were changing and going and moving and making moves you weren't even thinking through, just in retaliation for feeling as though you never had it growing up and you don't even know why. And vice versa, if all you ever had was inconsistency, never knew when somebody was coming home, never knew if you were going to have dinner, weren't going to have dinner, when it was going to come, who was going to have it, I promise you, you go towards consistency, and maybe a little bit too hard. It is astonishing to me that we consider 18 adult. But I can assure you that most, unless they are psychologically impaired, or have a personality disorder or an illness, or most parents, literally, I am a parent, we're doing everything we think we can. We're playing the cards that we're dealt, and what we don't know we can't do. So once you hit 18, don't blame. Take accountability for the fact that you made it this far, and do yourself the favor and start to heal. Because when you have no hope, you're hopeless. But when you know, well, you can have hope. So I'll see you next time. Thanks.